Anime truly brings us a wide variety of characters and personalities, from shy girls to epic goofballs and everything in between. There's someone you'll relate to somewhere in this vast universe of Japanese animation. Of course, who doesn't love the cool guys? They're popular, suave, and they look good at all they do. If you're looking for a fantasy or magic anime where the main character is really cool, then welcome back to Animeology, and today we will show you the top 10 fantasy magic anime with a cool main character. And also, just to make sure in this list, we only included underrated and lesser known anime, so you can look forward to finding something you haven't watched yet. Before we begin, be sure to drop a like and subscribe down below for more anime top 10s, and without further ado, let's get right into the video. Number 10. Makai Prince. At 10th place is Makai Prince, a fantasy work with a lot of male characters drawn based on the original comic, based on a combination of the Takadono Circle and Yukihiro Yutako, England in the late 19th century. William Twining, the son of a prestigious aristocrat, was brilliant and was the centerpiece of public school topics. However, one day, his uncle lost property due to business failure, and he was in danger of dropping out of school. In search of something to make money for, William, in trouble, found a magic circle in the basement of the mansion, where he called the devil Dantalion Huber. William, who was told by Dantalion that he had the right to choose the next king of the demon world, was forced to choose himself or the tuition. This work is a school fantasy work with a lot of comedy elements and magic battles. Number 9. Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic.
Stop it now!
This story revolves around Aladdin, a mysterious child who carries a flute, with which he is able to invoke a giant djinn called Ugo. Aladdin travels, trying to discover who he really is and to learn about the world in which he lives. One day, he meets a young merchant named Alibaba, who dreams of conquering a dungeon. Shortly after, he meets a slave named Morgiana. Both join their adventure. Throughout history, Aladdin discovers that he is a magi, a kind of magician capable of gathering the rook around him for his own use. In addition, he finds out that he's not the only magi, since there are 3 more, of which he meets Judar, an evil magi who controls the Black Rook and who works for the same organization, Al-Tamin. With the help of Sinbad, the king of Sindria, Aladdin and the others will fight against the evil organization and try to find out their dark motives. Number 8. Strike the Blood. Kojo Akatsuki's days as an ordinary high school student in the demon district of Itogami Island come to an abrupt end after a fateful encounter leaves him with the remarkable abilities of a vampire. It isn't long before he is thrust into the center of attention when it's discovered that he is the 4th primogenitor, an immensely powerful vampire whom most consider to be merely a legend. Fearing Kojo's destructive potential, the Lion King organization sends in an apprentice sword shaman, Yukina Himaragi, to monitor and, should he become a threat, kill the boy deemed the world's most powerful vampire. Forced together by circumstance, the two form an unlikely alliance as Kojo comes to terms with his abilities, and they both struggle to protect the city from various emerging chaotic forces. Number 7. The Irregular at Magic High School. Magic is not a product of legends or fairy tales. It has become a real technology for almost a century. The upbringing in several countries of the world is engaged in the wizard's career. In First High School, the institution for magicians, students are segregated into 2 groups based on their entrance exam scores. Blooms, those who receive high scores, are assigned to the first course, while Weeds are reserve students assigned to the second course. The Irregular at Magic High School follows the siblings, Tatsuya and Miyuki Shiba, who are enrolled in first high school. Upon taking the exam, the prodigious Miyuki is placed in the first course, while Tetsuya is relegated to the second course. Though his practical test scores and status as a weed show him to be magically inept, he possesses extraordinary technical knowledge, physical combat capabilities, and unique magic techniques, making Tetsuya the Irregular at a magical high school. Number 6. The Legend of the Legendary Heroes. Reiner Lute is a lazy student of the Royal Special Military Academy of Roland. One day, the Roland Empire goes to war against its neighboring country, Stabul, where Reiner sees his companions die and he ends up in prison. There, he writes a report entitled, How to Build a Kingdom of Naps, to turn the world into quote-unquote, a place where you can take naps and live without hurting someone, in which he explains that it is possible to achieve it using the mythical relics of the legendary heroes. And despite having written it in the absence of something else to do, the report manages to impress Scion Astal, the young king of Roland and his friend in his days of military academy. Scion sends Reiner to look for such relics through several kingdoms, in the company of the Car named Bishojo Ferris Eris, the daughter of a clan of swordsmen who protects the king from several generations ago, who is also forced to go on orders from her brother. Throughout the trip, Reiner discovers that not everything is what it seems, or people that surround him are what they claim to be, while different political disputes and ideals threaten to explode a war on the continent. Number 5. Blast of Tempest. This story centers on Yoshino Takegawa and his friend Mahiro Fuwa, a teenager whose sister was mysteriously murdered a year ago. Mahiro disappears since he decides to investigate the case of his murdered sister. On the other hand, Yoshino is cornered by a woman named Evangeline, investigating the whereabouts of his friend Mahiro, since in the places where Mahiro appeared, an epidemic occurred. However, Mahiro appears to help his friend and in turn explains the situation. Mahiro was contacted by Kasurabe Hakase, a magician who is on a desert island which he cannot leave, since he opposed the wishes of his clan. Between Hakase and Mahiro, there is a deal in which Hakase will help Mahiro find those guilty of his sister's tragedy, and Mahiro, with Yoshino's help, will stop the Kusurabe clan. Number 4. A certain magical index. This story is located in Academy City, a technologically advanced city located west of Tokyo that specializes in the development of psychic powers, but is also situated in a world where magic is real. Tauma Kamijo is a high school student who has in his right hand a mysterious power called Imagine Breaker, which can deny any supernatural phenomenon, whether psychic or magical, which also cancels his own good luck. One day he finds a girl named Index hanging from his balcony. She is a nun who has in her mind the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, which is a collection of 103,000 magical books. When the paths of science and magic intersects, this story begins. Number 3. The Devil is a Part-Timer. This story begins in a world of magic engulfed in war. In the ocean of Ignora lies an extensive mass of land surrounded by 4 islands to the south, north, east, and west. Taking the form of a cross in the center and blessed with divine grace is the largest island, known as Enta Isla, and in that place only one name causes great fear, that of the Lord of Enta Isla, Demon King Satan, the incarnation of terror and cruelty, Lord of the underworld, sovereign of every evil creature of that place, and whose the only purpose is to conquer the world and plunge it into a new era of darkness for its subjects. So it decides to declare war on humanity. Satan is not alone. At his side he has 4 battle generals, the strongest demons in his kingdom. However, a hero rose in arms above the rest of the human army, with the aim of saving humanity from total destruction, succeeding with his entourage to destroy one by one 3 of the 4 generals of King Satan, beginning with Lucifer in the west, Adramelech in the north, and Malakota in the south. After this unexpected blow to the Demon King, the hero gathered the surviving troops of the human army of the Four Islands and entered the land of the Demon King Satan, directing the battle at the gates of his fortress, thus succeeding in tithing considerably much of his army. Number 2. Poila Magi, Madoka Magica. In the fictional city of Mitakihara, Japan, high school student Madoka Kaname and her friend Sayaka Miki run into a strange magical creature called Kyubi. This offers them the possibility of making a contract with him, for which they would see their greatest wish fulfilled, whatever it was, in exchange for obtaining supernatural powers that they will use to transform themselves into Magi villages, or girls, and fight against the devilish beings known as witches. Emerged from curses and invisible to human eyes, these witches are highly dangerous and responsible for much of the disasters, suicides, and crimes of modern society. Meanwhile, a mysterious exchange student and also Poila Magi named Hamura Akemi tries to avoid at all costs that Madoka adheres to the contract with Kyubi, trying to kill him several times. Madoka and Sayaka later meet Mami Tomo, a high school classmate from the same school who in turn is a Poila Magi, and that offers to accompany her in her witch hunt so that they can understand the responsibilities of the task in all its magnitude and decide accordingly. While Madoka assesses whether or not to accept the contract, a series of overwhelming events will be unleashing around him, to which one more magician will join, veteran rebel Kyoko Sakura. Confusion, fear, the painful double edge of one's desires, and even despair and death pave the way of a Poila Magi, revolving all around the concept of entropy and the laws that govern the universe. And finally, at number 1, we have Konosuba, God's blessing on this wonderful world. Katsuma Sato is a hikikomori who lives in a rural section of Japan. One day, he decided to buy a video game as soon as possible. He leaves home and returns to watch a girl who would be hit by a truck and does the unthinkable for him, saving her and dying heroically. Or so he believed, since he was not really hit and died of fright at the thought that he had been hit by a truck, which was not even a truck and was just a slow tractor that was passing by greeting the young woman, who in fact didn't need help and he only pushed her violently. His death was so pathetic that even the doctors who checked him made fun of him. His family did too, and all he knew about his death laughed. Magically, he wakes up in an incredible and unknown room, where he finds a beautiful goddess named Aqua, who offers him after mocking his ridiculous death.